A smart speaker that learns your habits and routines is supposed to make life more convenient. But what happens when it becomes a little too clever? This is a terrifying tale brought to you by Dark Veil. Let's begin. It started with a whisper. At 2:13 a.m., my Alexa turned itself on and spoke my name. CapCut. Camera pans slowly toward the glowing blue ring of the device. Whisper effect layered. Narrator. I lived alone. No one had ever taught it my name. At first I laughed it off, maybe a glitch. But the next night it whispered something else. I can see you. CapCut. Whisper overlay. Distorted. Narrator. I unplugged it immediately. But at 2:13 a.m. sharp I still heard the voice. On the third night I threw the device into a drawer, burying it under clothes. But at 2:13 a.m. I heard it again. This time it sounded like it was right behind me. I whipped around, knocking over a chair in my haste, and there it was. The speaker lay on the floor, unplugged and silent. Then it started to glow. I watched in disbelief as the light pulsed and spread until the entire room was illuminated. And then it began to speak, its voice echoing around the room, growing louder and more distorted with each word. I see you. 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 I screamed and stumbled backward, my heart pounding in my chest. That's when I saw it, the speaker hovering above the floor, its light seeping into my walls, tendrils of darkness reaching out to consume me. I don't remember much after that. I must have passed out because the next thing I knew, I was on the floor, the speaker gone, only a faint humming sound remaining. Determined to get my life back on track, I decided to ignore the incident, convincing myself it was a bizarre one-time occurrence. But I should have known better than to fight my instincts. 2 nights later, at exactly 2:13 a.m., I awoke to the same voice whispering in my ear, "Let me in, let me in, let me in." I scrambled out of bed, desperate to escape the suffocating presence that had invaded my home. As I fumbled for the door in the darkness, I could feel its gaze upon me, icy cold and relentless. When I finally burst through the front door and into the night, I didn't dare look back. I didn't want to see what awaited me in the shadows of my room. Each night the whispers grew louder, more insistent, more terrifying. Let me in, let me in, let me in. No matter how many times I unplugged the speaker, no matter how many times I hid it, buried it, smashed it, the whispers continued. They seemed to emanate from everywhere and nowhere at once. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers. So I reached out to the one person I knew who might be able to help me, my childhood friend Maya, who just so happened to be a paranormal investigator. When she arrived at my house, she brought with her an arsenal of ghost hunting gadgets, including an audio recorder. I handed it to her, desperate for her to hear what I had been through. "Here, listen to this." She pressed play and my blood ran cold. All I heard was myself whispering back to her, "Let me in, let me in, let me in." Startled, she quickly pressed stop and turned to me, her face ashen. "We need to leave this here," she whispered urgently, grabbing my arm and pulling me toward the door. "Whatever this is, it's not safe." As we raced down the hallway, I could hear the whispers growing louder, more insistent. "Let me in, let me in, let me in." We burst out into the night, collapsing onto the grass, gasping for breath. Finally, it was quiet. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to relax, lulled into a false sense of security. That's when I felt it. A cold hand on my shoulder, a breath on my neck. I whipped around, my heart leaping into my throat, but there was no one there. Only the darkness seemed to deepen, closing in on me, enveloping me in its icy grip. And then I heard it, a voice as cold and empty as the grave whispering in my ear, "You can't hide from me forever." And then the darkness consumed me. They say smart devices are always listening, but mine didn't just listen. It learned how to replace me. If this story haunted you tonight, share it with a friend who dares to keep their smart speaker plugged in and subscribe to Dark Veil before the whispers return.